Here's something I want you to sit with for a second. Think about the last time your team missed a sprint, or a roadmap review ran off the rails, or you spent a whole week just coordinating things instead of actually building anything. That's not a product problem, that's an operations problem. And there's a difference. Stick with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what product operations is, what it isn't, and here's the part nobody talks about, while you're probably already doing it without the credit or the system to back it up. So, okay, let's start at the beginning. Product operations, or product ops for short, you'll hear both, is what happens inside of a product team that makes everything else run. Think of it as PMing the PMs. It's the connective tissue between strategy and execution. It's what happens in between the vision and what actually gets shipped. It's the in between, it's building that structure all around it. Here's another example. Think about a restaurant kitchen. You have the chef, your PM, with the vision, the menu. But behind the chef, there's that somebody who's making sure that the ingredients are there, that the stations are set up, the team knows what order that they're working in. That's your product ops person. And if you don't have that product ops person making sure that all the mise en place is in place, the best chef in the world can't get anything to the table. Now, product ops is not glamorous in any way, shape, or form, but it's what makes the glamorous part possible. So what does a product ops person own? They own things like the team processes, the workflows, the tooling and the tech stack, how data and insights flow through the organization, how feedback from the customers actually get used, and how your roadmap gets communicated across the company. Now, here's where this gets interesting. In a lot of orgs, especially smaller ones, there isn't a dedicated product ops person. So that means your product managers are doing that work, taking away from the actual work of product management. So why does ops get a bad reputation? Everybody thinks product ops is the same thing as being a project manager. And as someone who used to be a project manager, I get it. People freak out about the whole project management thing. But there is a difference. A project manager defines an executed scope. They take that project and they take it to the finish line. That's it. Here's the scope. Here you go. A product ops person designs the process that actually makes everything work itself. So think about a project manager runs the plays. The product ops person creates the playbook. Two very different things. But I know a lot of people will say, well, product ops looks like it looks very similar. It also looks like a lot of what admin people do. And so they're like, oh, well, that's not me. We'll do it later. We'll deal with it similar to how we talk about technical debt. We'll get to it later. It's fine. And then they never actually do. And then they wonder why they're spending all of their time instead putting out fires as opposed to building products that people love. So what exactly does product ops look like in practice? Let's go with an actual example. So on your team, you're having the same conversation every iterative planning meeting. Who's going to own what the priority is, why you're going to do this, why you're going to do that. It's the same conversation every single week. And your team is starting to dread it. Everyone kind of comes in, eye roll, and they're like, oh, for Pete's sake. However, if you're looking at it from a product ops perspective, you see this is a place where you can institute some better processes. So instead of having that same 45-minute session or hour-long session every week where you go through the same thing where it's like, who's going to own what? How big a priority is this? How are we doing this? What's the prioritization framework? How can you create a framework that can be appended to your tracking software like a Jira or, even Trello? How can you create that process so that everybody knows what that prioritization framework actually looks like? So when you come into your planning meetings, you're not spending 45 minutes talking about well, who's going to do what, who's going to do whatever. All you have to do is look at your framework, make sure that the framework is working correctly, make sure everyone is aligned on what they need to do. Great, this is fantastic. Wrap it up. We all have work to do. So now you're looking at 15 minutes as opposed to 45. And who doesn't love getting some time back? That's what product ops actually does. Product ops finds all of those little pieces and parts and looks for ways of optimizing it and putting a structure in place so that all of the people can go back to doing the jobs that they're actually very, very good at. Now, that's where it becomes kind of a little, I don't know, it becomes kind of interesting. For me, very selfishly, I love this kind of thing. And finding those little moments where you can kind of pull out how to make the process easy is an actual skill. So this is one reason why I wanted to talk about how product ops is different than project management, how it's different than admin, how it's different than product work. It is a new skill and specialty amongst itself. And it's one that's just starting to emerge. So this is a good way to talk about it now as opposed to later. So here's how to know if your team actually needs product ops. First, does your team have a documented process for how decisions get made? And if they do people actually follow it? Now, remember, I asked you, do you have a documented process for how decisions get made? And I also asked you if everybody follows it. If you can't answer that question, you might need prod ops. When someone new joins your team, do they have a clear onboarding system or do they just kind of learn things by osmosis? If that answer is a no, you might need product ops. Now, if you can just think about off the top of your head, what did your team ship or build last quarter and what was the impact? If you can't answer that either, you might need product ops. And again, these are just three basic questions to ask yourself every single time. You're like, do we need a system? So you definitely need a system to make sure your systems work. So we're going to then talk about later on in a future video, we'll talk about the 5 things that product ops actually owns, like the 5 big pillars of product operations. And then we'll talk about which one your team needs to fix first. Because just like every team is built differently, and just like every team has different ways of looking at agile, every team is going to have a different way of needing product ops and what they need first. And how you fix it really depends on where the team is. You get to answer my favorite question as a product manager, which is, it depends. It depends. My favorite answer. So if this is something that you're super interested in, or even mildly interested in, or if you just like seeing me nerd out about this kind of thing, make sure to subscribe. And if any of this is something that you're really vibing on and you are like, oh, I might need this, drop me a question. Talk about it. Maybe even a comment. Let me know where you got stuck. Let me know where your team might have gotten stuck. I do read things. I'm super curious to want to know where you are also. So drop me a comment. Let me know if you're too nervous to do so. I am all over the internet as a professional adult. So find me, drop me a comment, and we'll talk about it at a later date. This has been Karen Young from the Professional Adult. Super excited to talk to you.